bottom left side, we are looking at the main base of our veteran, hailing from Poland, representing Team Liquid. It is MaNa.
And his opponent spawning up at the top right for CSO Esports. It is YoungYakov.
Now, a lot of people are going to be very familiar with MaNa and all the great runs he's had throughout his history in StarCraft 2. YoungYakov is a guy that people will probably know if you watch a lot of StarCraft. If you don't watch too much StarCraft, you'll be like, all right, who the hell is this? But he truly is one of the better unknown Zergs in Europe. And obviously, he is known for the diehards, but he is not as known as a Lambo, Serral, Elazer, Raynor, etc. He's not really been around. He's not been literally setting the trends for Zerg in the European scene. But you know, there was a time that Europe was swarmed by Zergs, where you had Swordov, Nemshar, Zenster, all those guys that were all part of the better players in Europe. Of course, Stefano deserves to be mentioned, and the list goes on, right? Nerdjaw, like, tell me when to stop, and I'll stop Steadfast. That is not really the case anymore, right? It's kind of Europe became a Protoss region where we may not have Protoss champions, but we just have a buttload of good Protoss players. And when it came to up-and-coming Zergies, it was a bit quiet for a while, but this man absolutely deserves some love. He's been getting better and better. He's well-rounded as well. YoungYakov is not a one-trick pony where, okay, he's good with roaches and lings, he can build a lot of them, but if that doesn't work, he's in trouble. No, he's actually a pretty damn good Hive player too, and I personally find him a very exciting young man.
Yeah, I think him and Iba are the two players I think of that are like maybe the future of European Zerg. I'm not sure. I don't want to miss out on anyone because I don't want to, you know, not give credit where credit's due. But definitely these are the two players that I think of as like maybe the next generation of upcoming Zergs in Europe. And it's going to be really cool to see if YoungYakov can kind of make the next step against a player that is so experienced in the form of MaNa. And it's funny that you mention the Zergs in Europe, because now I feel like just Polish Protoss players actually outnumber the number of like top tier Zergs in Europe.
Yeah, no, I had a couple of show matches recently where I invited some of these Polish Protosses, but it's always funny when you introduce a Polish Protoss. He's like, it's a great Polish Protoss, but it's not MaNa, it's not Gerald, it's not Cristiano, it's not Papi, it's not Rodzin, but it's Art, you know? Yeah, it's a whole laundry
exactly.
list of very proper, solid Polish Protosses. I think when it came to the Zergies, as we have our first Adept making 20 heroes off the map, MaNa draws first blood. Always a great feeling as a Protoss. Your Adept lives, you get a good scout off, you see the amount of drones and you get a kill. You obviously love that as a Protoss. I think Iba was a great person to mention. I think that Fjont is pretty good from Sweden.
Yes.
And obviously Mixu deserves love, but he's been around for a while. And I think out of all those Zergies, YoungYakov is definitely the one that's like more likely to take down some of the big names when it comes down to the European scene.
Yeah, certainly. He's the only one of the players that we mentioned that is actually in this tournament right now at this stage, still fighting for a chance to make it to the playoffs. And this is pretty interesting right now. This is a very quick layer right after the Oracle goes in. Oracle does not drop a Revelation. Now, this might not be anything, but I wouldn't be the most surprised if this actually leads to like a Ling Queen Nidus. I'm going to keep an eye on the gas count, but what do you think if we do see something like that?
It is possible. I actually saw it yesterday being used to great effect in the WTL, and that was Tudming, a Chinese Zerg who did it against Trigger and actually worked, but that was on Altitude. Altitude is a bigger map where maybe it's a little bit harder to scout it. I personally think it is nothing, but we'll keep a close eye on it. Queen count currently is at 6, but we see more and more drones on the way. There is a chance, mate, that you're onto something, but we'll keep a close eye on it. And I'm sure that MaNa is also really going to try to keep a close eye on it. But it could just be for quick. Maybe it's just going to go straight into Hydras. Nope, there is the Nidus. It could very well indeed be that good old Queen Ling Nidus. And it would be so great for MaNa if he scouts it. MaNa does not scout it yet, but he does get 5 drones. It's more drones in the production tab, but this recall means that MaNa doesn't see that finished up layer. He didn't even see it morph in the first place. MaNa at this point is just like Scotty from Eurotrip. He does not know, and that could be a problem.
It certainly is a problem. And, well, Yeah, I can't continue the metaphor. That was brilliant, actually. There's no vision in the main base. Uh-oh, this could be very scary right here. There is a lot. This is one pylon powering the Forge, the Twilight Council, and 2 gateways. If that goes down before these upgrades complete, this could just be checkmate.
I'm afraid it is gonna go up, man, because the Oracle's flying to the other side of the map, and by the time that MaNa scouts all of it, he's gonna hear the Nida sound. It's terrifying. That pylon is going to be a target. Here comes YoungYakov. Now, MaNa does have Zealots with +1. If there is one thing that's good against Zerglings, it has to be Zealots with +1, right? And it's still gonna take a little while before the Queens can get that pylon, so there definitely is a chance that MaNa just wins the fight, but it's going to be very difficult against this many Queens. Here come the Zealots. Will there be some transfuse? Yes, there is a transfuse. There are many transfusions going down.
Yes, there are, and this is a ton of Zealots. And here's the advantage of going for charge and +1 instead of blink and +1. Without that charge, if this is Stalker instead of Zealot, I think that this is probably maybe already over. Or at least we're already talking about crippling damage, but instead now it is a massive advantage for MaNa in the army. He will still probably lose this 3rd base. He's going to try and contest, but YoungYakov will be able to get it and get on out with pretty much all the Queens. I think this is still enough for YoungYakov to be in a comfortable position.
Yeah, that actually got quite well. That got a lot closer to a very good hold than I ever thought would be possible if you pick up on it this late. So I think MaNa did a lot of things right, but the supply block that we are still currently looking at, that really hurt. Because MaNa actually had an army that was big enough to really fight the army of YoungYakov and maybe save that Nexus. And if MaNa saves that Nexus, needless to say, he'd be absolutely cooking. Now, if MaNa spends all of his money, he's still going to have a terrifying army. But now I'm afraid that it just takes all a little bit too long, right? We're waiting for a Warp Prism. We're waiting to warp in High Templars that can morph into Archons. And by the time that MaNa spends his piece back, as he supply blocked again, he just did not build enough. Oh, that's a big one, man. That really is a big one.
And he's not even on 8 gates yet. So like, he could even after spending all this money, he could still just get 4 more gateways. He's gonna try and double expand. I think his biggest advantage was the army supply for that little period. Now, maybe this makes sense because he got supply blocked and just try and drag it out. But YoungYakov, I mean, he's not going to let this Nexus go up. He just finds it, instantly takes it down. This feels like it was a tough situation, and MaNa has now made it a brutal situation.
Yep, let's see if the Archons and the Oracles can get something done. But yeah, YoungYakov has obviously transitioned. Okay, whoa, that Stasis Trap also becomes a force field. And if MaNa warps in a couple of extra Zealots, okay, Queens are starting to sneak through, but there is a Sentry in the mix. There are Zealots running into the 3rd base as well, but there are Banelings blowing up all these Zealots. Well done there by YoungYakov. On the other side of the map, we can see that the floodgates are open and Lings have made it in. I mean, this game just became a whole lot more chaotic than it was supposed to be. And now it's just kind of the question, right? Who is going to lose more workers? It feels that MaNa is obviously not able to lose this many workers, as there are Lings into his main base too. The supplies are heavily favoring YoungYakov. MaNa is forced to use a recall. Will at least shut down that Nidus, but there was some potential there, as that Stasis Trap was picture perfect. Roaches, hello. Why are you guys running away from the fight? You might want to save your drones here, and that is exactly what is going to happen in the end.
Yeah, and he's going to be able to get on top of these Zealots. This is... Oh, MaNa, you do not want to lose those. You want to save every single unit. He's in such a tough position. Now, YoungYakov going for the attack here. This feels a little bit unnecessary to at least... Oh, very nice feedbacks right there from MaNa. Really heads up play to go for those. But he does lose one of the High Tempo. Not going to be able to morph in both these Archons. Actually, YoungYakov might just have way too much.
Yep, but the Stasis Trap could still kind of complicate things. If it's a monstrous one, then it's a pretty decent one. But yeah, MaNa's army, it's not a bad army, right? It's Archons, it's Immortals. We want to believe there is some potential, but it just feels like there's too much Zerg. Where do you start, right? Can the Immortals find that sweet spot where they can finally start shooting at Roaches and deal 50 damage a shot like we are currently looking at? This is what MaNa was waiting for. YoungYakov definitely getting sloppy right now. It's like, sure, you're going to get the Nexus mate, but lost a lot of Roaches there as MaNa is counterattacking. And I gotta say, Yakov did just great with the Nidus networks, man. It wasn't just that initial First, Queen Ling Nidus. All right, do or die, all in, die trying. No, he has been using that Nidus non-stop throughout the last 2 minutes. And that's really cool video gaming.
It is. Now, I do have to say, MaNa still hasn't put vision up in his main base, and he knows that the Nidus is still a tool. He knows that it can still cause big problems for him. And he's not really dealing with that, but MaNa's gotten up to, like you said, a very effective army competition. YoungYakov, no, this is not the fight. He needs to get out of here, losing quite a few roaches for free. And we're actually starting to approach the point where I think I just way prefer MaNa's position at this point. The army value is just so much more powerful for MaNa, despite the army supply lead for YoungYakov.
Yeah, I think Yakov losing all those roaches that ran away from the rest of the queens and the roaches, that was very painful because there was a whole bunch of supply that he was not supposed to lose. MaNa has done a phenomenal job in finding drone damage over and over again with Zealot run-bys and that War Prism. That Prism that's so low on HP, but it will still live, at least for now, as it seems that that queen is going to fall too. Now, Yakov is in a bit of trouble. He's not in all the trouble because his army supply still looks good. Hey, queens on the left side. Are you kidding me? A 3 HP Prism will warp in a couple of zealots. All right, Yakov has played a great game, but he is so over-eager right now. It's like pedal to the metal. He's like, get out, MaNa. Like, what do I gotta do to get you out of this game? But there is a reason why MaNa has been relevant since 2010. This man knows how to drag a game on. And it is indeed starting to look very dire. If Yakov takes one more bad fight on the other side of the map, yeah, this game is over. Because it's not just Archons and Immortals anymore that fast. We've got Disruptors on the battlefield as well.
That we do, and Banespeed's not yet done. Please, YoungYakov, don't go for the worst anti-timing. His +1 missile and Banespeed are seconds away. Just wait. Just 10 seconds at least. Stasis wards could be huge back here as well. Would like to see the Archon move out of the way and let this Disruptor forward. There we go. We are seeing the Banelings and Ravagers moving forward. Wow. Very nice Disruptor shot to start things off. Battery Overcharge is going to keep these Archons alive very effectively.
Oh my goodness.
Excellent force fields on the right side. MaNa, beautiful defensive engagement, and he crushes that attack from YoungYakov.
That was a picture-perfect hold from MaNa. Phenomenal overcharge, great force field, and even better Nova. And while all of that was happening, the Zealots were still finding damage. Look at the main base of YoungYakov for a split second. We can just see the absolute chaos that has taken place here. Like, what is that? There are 5 queens defending in a lair with 3 drones and a spawning pool. That just really goes to show how hectic and how creative this game got. Yakov was in a phenomenal spot, but at one point just got reckless, carried away, so eager to end it, and all the kudos to MaNa for bringing this game back, and now obviously potentially bringing it home because it's starting to look better than it's ever done for him. Amazing, an absolutely amazing win here by MaNa. It all, so much trouble at more than one occasion, but awesome performance.
Yeah, and that's the experience kicking in. That's that outstanding micro. MaNa's greatest strength. You know, if it was the World Team League, I think that 10 scale might not be enough sometimes, because sometimes it feels like his micro's a 12 out of 10. And he kind of showed it when he really needed to most. He's going to move forward with his attack. Great force field. Disruptor shot does get pulled back a little bit. Bailey's trying to come in from the back, but there's just not enough here for YoungYakov. MaNa's army is too strong. The War Prism micro is pretty solid to save a couple units. And YoungYakov is going to have no choice but to tap out. And you said it best. This was a huge lead for YoungYakov. MaNa does not give up, though, and he fights back.
Those Immortals towards the end, one of them had 26 kills, and a lot of them were roaches. The other one had 16 kills, and there were a decent amount of roaches, lings, and banelings there as well. That's a sick win by MaNa, man, because he saw that Nidus so bloody late. You're supposed to kind of picnic. Now, the fact that he indeed went for Zealots over Stalkers was a game-saving choice. Because, yeah, 2-3 Stalkers there, they'll do absolutely nothing against that many links. Zealots, especially with +1. Obviously, +1 is a big upgrade because it allows the Zealots to two-shot the Zergling rather than having to swipe 3 times. And that may seem silly, but even for melee units, that makes a very, very big difference. But even despite that, I was like, no, it's too much damage. MaNa's too supply blocked. He's floating too much money. Yeah, Yakov just couldn't end it. He was so eager on ending it, couldn't end it. And MaNa did a great job with the Prism, with the Oracles, with the Zealot run-bys. That's a really impressive win by MaNa.
It is an extremely impressive win from a position that was not terrible initially on paper, But then with the supply block, with the float, you know, he really had an extremely tough position to try and deal with, and he was able to do exactly what he needed to fight his way back. That is some real grit being shown from MaNa, and it's so nice to see.
And YoungYakov, at one point, it just kind of felt he wanted to do too many things at once, right? He wanted to defend, he wanted to attack, he wanted to go up to 4 bases, but all of it, he wanted to make roaches, ravagers, and banelings at the same time, and some upgrades. And it was all of a relatively mediocre economy because he was losing some drones to these Zealot run-bys. So the young man just maybe showing some of that inexperience there, getting a bit carried away, trying to do too many things at once. But it was a great game. At the beginning of the day, I told BO I was looking forward to this best of 3. Well, 1 game in, I am not disappointed. And let's see what game 2 on Babylon has in store for us as we have loaded into it successfully. And we can introduce our lovely competitors in the bottom right side, representing CSO. So close, yet so far. Now down 0-1, 1 map away from being eliminated of the ESL Masters. He needs to win this best of 3 to stay alive. It's YoungYakov.
And his opponents showing an extraordinary amount of poise. It is Team Liquid's MaNa. Striking back in a huge way in that game. Man, I really can't say how impressed I am by that. And I mean, I've seen MaNa do this before, but that was still just such an impressive showing. Now, this is really interesting from YoungYakov. He pulled the drone as though he was going to expand normally, but he has gone for a gas pool. Really wanted to send this drone back to the natural to be able to take that hatchery on location at the natural expansion. But MaNa, he read this very nicely, built the pylon, knew that his opponent must have snuck a drone out. Very clever play for MaNa, and he is not going to get bamboozled. I really like how this is going for MaNa so far.
Yeah, it's all obviously somewhat minor, but it's obviously going to be nice if nothing crazy happens. Now, after the aggressive build that YoungYakov went for, though, if I was MaNa and I'd see the quick pull, you see a somewhat early speed, you're like, all right, let's make sure that I can get the double and the triple scout in, which is not always easy once links are out. MaNa, with hiding that probe so far in the natural, might actually get that scout. That we can see that is probably not going to mean a whole lot, unless YoungYakov now fires up a whole bunch of additional links, but I don't think he's going to do that, and he's not. But for MaNa, it's so nice to confirm these things. Here comes the probe, and that is just a magnificent scout. He's gonna see that there is no more gas being mined, there is no baning nest, there is no roach warren, and we can probably even see a couple of extra drones hatch. So standard stuff. But it's so nice to confirm standard stuff in important games.
Oh, it's so important to do so, because if he doesn't, there's a chance that it is a baneling bust. And, you know, he doesn't build a shield battery. He finds himself in a lot of trouble. Actually, hang on. This pylon, he's second adept, the MVP, 8 HP, saves it, 2 hits left. That adept could not have been more frame perfect for how it finished.
And MaNa has warped in a pylon. That pylon has finished up. YoungYakov now made a whole bunch of links, and I wonder if that's just links to deal with the adepts that are heading towards his side of the map, or if these are links that have some evil intentions on the other side of the map as well, because he's got 16 links. He's a 2-base Zerg. Obviously, the longer this goes on, the less likely it becomes that all these links can get something done. Oh, YoungYakov will go back into droning. I'm a bit confused about all of this, Setfest, because it feels like we're a bit over the place. Yeah, MaNa is temporarily gonna go. Okay, actually, he messed up his wall. He has a double cap, right? So yes. I guess he can let that pylon finish. Here come the links of YoungYakov. Might get one adept, but I just don't think he's gonna get a whole lot done. I love that second pylon because it creates an additional choke point. This is very well done by MaNa. And he can still go for the full wall up. Now, he does not want to lose that adept as well. It's unbelievable. All the little things are just working out perfectly for MaNa. First that pylon, now that save on the adept. None of it maybe is game-changing, but it's such a good feeling when you can keep on saving these units over and over again with very little HP or buildings.
It just feels like everything is going well for you. It feels like you're meant to win this game. And that's not how it works, obviously. But confidence, especially a player like MaNa, who is so micro-oriented. When things go your way, it's going to feel really good. And conversely, for YoungYakov, with things really not going his way there, not able to get that pylon, not able to get that adept, and committing a fair number of lanes to do so in both cases, I mean, that's going to feel kind of crummy. Now, okay, we will move to the next stage of this game. MaNa is going for a rather committed 5-gate Glaive Adepts play. YoungYakov, I mean, he's already got roaches in production. He will have what he needs to defend this, but because his drone count is so low, he needs to defend this pretty much perfectly.
Now, I have a very quick question before we take a look at all of these adepts making their magic happen on the other side of the map. If you take a look at that natural of MaNa and the wall off, do you think we're going to see that in one of his glorious YouTube videos on how to wall off against his Zerg?
I certainly hope so. That would be amazing. We are going to see him shade forward into the lanes. Lanes will get a surround on the ramp, and the roaches are going to town here, but it is the two adepts at a third base that are finding a fair amount of drone damage, and all it takes is a couple of adepts getting in somewhere that you don't want them to be. Oh, and the adepts do finish in the main base. They will get cleaned up, but they're going to find even more damage here. 12 drones going down. YoungYakov is only on 25 workers right now, and MaNa, I think the best thing he can do is exactly this. Don't warp in any more adepts after this point. Maybe one more if you want to like pair things up, but just keep your opponent on the back foot with this War Prism. Make sure you don't die. And yeah, just probe up. Don't overcommit. He's already gotten a ton of damage done.
Yep. This game is a bit of a disaster for YoungYakov. The opening didn't work out, couldn't get that pylon. The second 12 Zerglings couldn't quite get done what he was looking for. The pylon block in his natural slowed his economy down even more than he already would have. Now MaNa is getting a little bit reckless here. We'll throw away these adepts, but with the worker lead that MaNa has created for himself and the tech, we are looking at a Zerg that does not have a lair. Meanwhile, we're looking at a Protoss that has a Disruptor out. Like, that's just an unfair fight. It's not hard to land great Novas against Roaches that don't have their Roach speed upgrade. MaNa is just ultra far ahead, despite the fact that this natural right here that BO is showing us, I mean, that's just a Protoss work of art, baby. The next time that MaNa makes fun of one of my wall-offs, I'm gonna go ahead and show him a screenshot of his own wall-off, because that is quite something, but it is going to work, and that's all that matters for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's the hero school of walling right there. If it's ugly and it works, or if it's stupid and it works, it's not stupid, you know? It gets the job done. And we are going to see, this is rather interesting. I'm used to seeing players when they go for this disruptor drop, waiting for the second disruptor and the War Prism speed, because it's just such a huge difference. But MaNa really wanted to get on the field with the first disruptor. Now, I wonder if he's going to recall to get the second disruptor to pick that up, or if he's just going to keep going with this. Adepts, got to be a little bit careful here, but he will get a nice disruptor shot. Transfuse is good, and the split was great there. Nice job from YoungYakov, really managing that situation well.
Yeah, YoungYakov is actually playing very sexy in the last minute. Unfortunately, he just had such a disastrous start that I'd be lying if I said I love his position right now. But he's really done a great job in at least trying to turn this into something, as here comes one of these Novas on the slow Roaches. I think the main reason, Steadfast, why MaNa picked up that first disruptor and already went for it before War Prism speed and the second disruptor is just because he knew the tech was late, and maybe he thought that YoungYakov was gonna all-in him with Ling Roach Ravager of Hatchery tech, and then just sending it out, landing an early shot can obviously make his life a whole lot easier. Suddenly MaNa's like, wait a minute, you're macroing after that game, after that early game that you had? We're macroing right now? Well, I guess then I can just send a few more units to the other side of the map. He's going to lose the War Prism here though, as it took some damage from that Spore Crawler. Nova will connect with two Roaches, but MaNa's getting a little bit reckless here, and if YoungYakov just has a few more units showing up, he's actually going to get an absolutely amazing fight, and he still has 59 drones. Steadfast, in game 1, we had the miraculous comeback of MaNa. Here in game 2, we are looking at a Zerg who was literally on 25 drones, no lair tech against the Protoss that had a disruptor on the way. And now I love it for YoungYakov.
This was the biggest overcommitment MaNa could have ever gone for in this situation. He stepped so far onto creep. Blink finishes as 3 Stalkers all die at red HP. That was so overly aggressive from MaNa, and the big thing as well, not only did the timing work out poorly, he was only on 5 gates. So MaNa maybe could have had a situation where he possibly could have won the game there, but just hitting way too early, really going far too deep, and gives YoungYakov a chance in a game that he really didn't have any business having a chance in.
Well, he doesn't just have a chance right now. I am even loving it.
Lead, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a lead, man. Like, it's absolutely unbelievable, because besides that, I completely agree with you. I think almost MaNa got tilted, that the observers and the adepts and the disruptor were so close to killing all these queens. We're so close to finding a couple of good engagements, and in the end, everything just barely stayed alive. And I was like, all right, that's it. I've had enough. I'm so far out. I'm just going to go ahead and... If you're going to be annoying and display some great queen micro and splitting your queens and transfusing at the absolute last second, I'm done with you. But he couldn't end it. That was just obviously a great hold in the end by YoungYakov. And MaNa getting a bit carried away as Yakov fires up 13 additional drones. MaNa is ready for round 2. How many disruptors are we looking at? We're looking at 2 disruptors. This time around, though, it's 18 stalkers. So MaNa still has a very realistic chance. As we often say, StatFest, 1 Nova is all it takes. Let's see if we can get that 1 Nova. This one is decent. The second one is also quite good. But I think still plenty of Zerg to work with.
Yeah, those were some desperation splits. YoungYakov might have actually been able to target down that first disruptor, but the thing is, as Zerg, you don't have stim bio units, so you never feel confident in actually going for it, even though it might have been an opportunity. Great blink micro coming in from MaNa here. He's got those disruptor shots ready to go once again. It looked good for YoungYakov, but he might have droned up a little bit too much. He is going to go for these disruptor snipes, and he will get them. And now MaNa is very far on to creep, but there might be a few too many stalkers.
Yeah, the queens were shooting at the rocks early. That's a little bit painful. Great snipes on the disruptors, though, but yeah, indeed, the stalker count is high. More overlords are dying. And because YoungYakov was supply block, it just took a little while before these extra units showed up after MaNa took down an overlord or 2 in the center of the map. Right now, I'm sure that YoungYakov wishes he could just crank out 30 or so Zerglings, but I don't think he's got the larva for that. So he's forced to pull the drones. It's drones and roaches against stalkers way on creep, as a couple of adepts, I believe, have made it into the back of the natural, and these adepts have found some great damage, while the stalkers are finding even more damage in the bottom side of the map. Supplies are dead even, but that should favor the guy that has the blink stalkers, and that guy is MaNa. Was ultra far ahead, made life very hard on himself, but it seems like he is still going to be able to close it out here in the end after Yakov lost the majority of his queens and once more a silly amount of drones. MaNa showing us that perhaps he just made it a little more exciting for the fanciest StatFest. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to say, because I feel like after that huge loss for MaNa, lost so many units, it felt like YoungYakov was going to be in complete control, but maybe he just droned a little bit too much. Oh, disruptor, okay, does get picked up. Good job for MaNa to not fire the shot. YoungYakov maybe has one opportunity to just get build up a big army, build as big of an army as he can, and just go for it. I don't agree with him droning out of this. I think he's got a big gas bank. If he makes a ton of Ravagers, oh, disruptor shot, okay, good pickup from MaNa. It was probably going to get sniped. If he spends all of his money on Ravagers, maybe there's a chance, but droning up, that ain't it.
I think he doesn't know that MaNa rebuilt the 4th base, so maybe in his mind it's like a 2.5 base Protoss, and he's like, okay, it's bad, but maybe I can still make some magic happen, especially if I take out a couple of his probes as well. Maybe if he would know indeed about the 4th base that was immediately rebuilt after he got a cancel on it, then he would have done that. But obviously it's a game of incomplete information. YoungYakov is just working with the info that he has. His Lings are now going to see that 4th base for the first time, and he's like, okay, well that really stinks. He's gonna morph a couple of Lings into Banelings. He's gonna try as a disruptor on the other side of the map, try to get a big shot, but YoungYakov was all over it. MaNa once more with a really good cancel on his Novas and the hot pickup. Can these Banelings get something done here? Can they give YoungYakov a tiny bit of momentum?
Well, they find a couple of probes right here, and there's only 2 disruptors. One of them is in the Warpers, and hang on, MaNa, did he once again make this situation more difficult for himself? Disruptor does gets a couple of roaches. Not too bad. Second one, the splits need to be good. They're not good enough, and that is going to be the backbreaker. Big blink forward will secure MaNa the game. And, well, really was that disruptor that absolutely made 100% sure. MaNa was already in a big lead, but now he is going on to do or die Sunday. And YoungYakov, he had some opportunities in this series. but it is going to be the more experienced Polish Protoss player who will be able to close it out now.
Yeah, no, it's been a very fun best of 3, and I think YoungYakov showed a lot of people why we get excited over him. He's a fun Zerg. He's willing to make games crazy and hectic, and you really wonder what would have happened if he just had a slightly better start in this game, because at one point everything was going well. He's still trying, fighting a little bit of damage with Lynx on the other side of the map, but obviously this Protoss army is officially too big and